Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about The Brutalist. And this movie came out in 2024, and it took me a while to see this movie. I was finally able to watch it, and I saw it on Amazon Prime. And this movie is directed by Brady Corbet, if I pronounced that correctly. I've never seen anything that he directed, but I know that he was the star in the 2007 Funny Games remake. And I haven't seen that version, but it is on my watch list. And I thought this movie was pretty excellent. And this film, for those who don't know, was also nominated for Best Picture. And in my opinion, it was definitely well deserved. And if it had won, I would not be disappointed at all. I really love how this movie looks. I think it's shot very well. And there's not a whole lot of wide shots or establishing shots. It's mostly kind of medium shots and just focused on our main character and everything he has to go through. It's more like a character piece in a sense, and just following everything that he does in a similar way that Barry Lyndon does. But in this movie, it's presented in its own unique way that makes it stand out. And I also enjoyed the music in the film. I thought it was a good addition to the film. It never felt distracting, and I really enjoyed where the story went in this film. And this movie is 3.5 hours long. For 99% of it, I was with it. There was one tiny part of the movie where I was starting to feel the runtime because it was going in a direction where I was like, yeah, I know exactly where this is headed. But 1 minute later, I was back into it and it didn't bug me at all. And I was like, oh, okay, we're back into this. I'm no longer feeling the runtime and we're just moving along. And that would be my only criticism with the movie, really. Is that just for 1 to 2 minutes, I was starting to feel the runtime. Aside from that, I didn't really have any complaints with it. And I thought that Adrian Brody was excellent in this movie, and he totally deserved his Oscar win. I also did find it kind of funny that, and this has nothing to do with the movie, but during the Oscars when he won Best Actor for this movie, he had like a 5-minute speech, and he also told the Oscars, please stop the music. I've done this before. I'll be really quick, but he wasn't quick at all. And I just find that to be really funny in retrospect. But in this movie, I thought he did a really great job, and it feels like you're watching a character. You don't feel like you're watching an actor, even though he's very distinguishable and you can make him out. And I've always enjoyed his performances, but in this movie, he really shines, and this might be my favorite performance from him since The Pianist. I also thought the characters overall were very interesting, and they're not like experimental characters in the sense that like, oh, there's very unpredictable and you never know what's going to happen. They're very much characters that like, yeah, you can expect it, but in this movie, I think it was handled very well to the point where it never once felt cheesy, to the point where it was distracting, and I was never taken out of it because of the way things were presented in this movie. And each character in this movie serves a purpose, even if they are a minor character that doesn't really have much screen time. I do feel as though they add to the film at the very least. And I also enjoyed how Adrian Brody's character, despite all his best work, he isn't really used to the extent like, yeah, we want you because you're a great person to work with and you're very talented. They're kind of just using him as a means to just exploit him and use him for what he's worth. And that made it interesting and compelling for me, despite the runtime. And there's always something going on to keep you entertained. It's like The Godfather in a sense, where there's lots of stuff going on to keep you entertained, and it never once feels like there's too much going on to the point where you lose track of everything. It's more or less, there's always something happening that gives you something new to chew on and to really experience. And that's how I felt with the runtime of this movie. And I know I've been talking about that a lot, but I do feel as though that's kind of intimidating about this movie, is that this movie is 3.5 hours long. So it's asking a lot of you, but I do think it's worth it. It is one of those movies that genuinely does justify the runtime for, at the very least, 99% of it. And that one section where I had a problem with it, with that pacing, where I was feeling the runtime for just a couple of minutes, that was like 3 hours into the movie. At least 3 hours into the movie, or I didn't fact check that, but that's how it felt to me. And also, the way this movie portrays the main character as kind of somewhat of a drug addict, I thought was done tastefully, and it didn't feel like it was just thrown in there to have some drama for the sake of having drama in the story. It felt like a natural part of the story that served a purpose, and the way it was portrayed, I thought was handled very well. And also, nothing to really do with the quality of the movie, but an A24 film, it's usually something that I look out for because I like A24 films a lot for the most part. And honestly, some of the movies that they distribute are some of my all-time favorite movies. Not all the time, but sometimes. And in terms of the directions that the story goes, I did like that. And what I didn't really mention is that it did feel natural in the sense that everything that's happening in the story feels like, oh, this would happen. And that makes sense as to why it's happening in the story. Even though it does feel similar to other movies you might have seen, there's nothing about it that I thought was like poorly handled in that sense. And the reason I mentioned that is because I can see someone criticizing the movie for it feeling similar to other movies you've seen, and there's nothing really in it that makes it indistinguishable from any other movie that does this. But to be perfectly honest, as long as it's done well and not fumbling on its face or anything like that, it kind of comes into the argument of, if it's done perfectly well and there's nothing about it that was bad, what more could you want? Not to say that there's nothing that this movie has to offer beyond just the way the story goes or like how it's told and the emotions that come with it. That's most of what you get out of the movie. But still, I think it's very well done, and there's a lot that I love about this movie. I haven't even mentioned Guy Pearce or Felicity Jones. I thought they were really great in the movie, and they had really strong characters, and when they show up, they serve an actual purpose to the story. Even Felicity Jones, who shows up like halfway through and isn't really much of a character in the first half, but in the second half, after the intermission, which on the Amazon version, which I watched this movie, it had like a minute-long intermission, but I believe when it was in theaters, there was like 15 minutes of an intermission. I can't really confirm that because I didn't see it in theaters, but that's just what I've heard. So allegedly it was 15 minutes. But going back to Felicity Jones' character for a second, I do feel as though she adds a lot. She brings a lot of heart to the story and brings out a lot of things that the main character hadn't experienced yet up until that point to a certain extent. And she's a great character. And that's about all I have to say about The Brutalist. Highly recommend it. Definitely would watch it again. I just need to find the correct time and date to watch it. You kind of have to plan your day around this movie. But there is an intermission, so if you need to break it up into 2 parts, I guess you could do that. I'm not opposed to that, so if you need to take a break, feel free to. But still, getting a little off track, I love this movie, so check this movie out whenever you get the chance, and with all that being said, I'm going to give The Brutalist a 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of The Brutalist, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Companion. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.